Oh, looks like I maybe was muted. You guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, sorry about that. My fault. You guys were saying anything? I did not hear it. All right, everyone, let's see here. Yeah, we're recording now. Cool. All right, everyone, let's get the show started. Welcome to Office Hours. It's April 29th, 2020. My name is Eric Osterman, and I'm going to be leading the conversation. I'm the CEO and founder of Cloud Posse. We are a DevOps accelerator, and that basically means that we help companies own their infrastructure in record time by building it with you and then showing you the ropes. If that sounds interesting, you can always go to cloudposse.com/quiz to get started. For those of you new to the call today, the format is very informal. My goal is to get your questions answered, so feel free to unmute yourself at any time if you want to jump in and participate. If you're tuning in from our podcast or YouTube channel, you can always register for these live and interactive sessions by going to cloudposse.com/office hours. We host these calls every week. We'll automatically post a video recording of this session to the Office Hours channel, as well as follow up with an email that you can share with your team. Well, with that said, we can get started here. So the agenda today is pretty thin, no announcements to call out. So really the thing that I wanted to get to was reviewing the question in the Office Hours channel by Chonan. I think we basically came to an answer already in the thread there, but also then to move on and ask any other questions. See here, I'm gonna pull up Slack here. Go to the, oops. Let's see if I get out of full screen over here and now get Slack over here. All right, so Adam shared a link to a project that he's working on. So as soon as he joins in a little bit, maybe we'll cover that. In the meantime, oh, hey Adam, welcome.
Who's Adam?
Oh, oops, sorry. Andrew, sorry, I got it mixed up. So Andrew, yeah, we'll get to your question here in a second. Glad you're on the call. We also got Chonan, who asked a question earlier this week about a situation that they're in. I think we had a pretty good context here, but I thought I'd open the floor up to see if anybody wanted to add some additional context here. So Chonan says that they have an internal application that's grown organically over time, and as it's approached 30 internal users, which admittedly isn't that much, things begin getting slow, becoming slow. So they can't do a load balancer with many smaller instances due to the fact that a couple of places using databases table as a queue, and this would result in a race condition because there's no locking mechanism they can use. So they ended up separating all the asynchronous and the recurring tasks and have them on another server now. And they did that by setting up an elaborate CICD process where the master repo would sync to a secondary repo and roughly duplicate 98% of the code. Then updates the primary instance, then updates the secondary instance and secondary asynchronous task instance. This is providing users some relief on the UX, but the overall architecture is hard for them to maintain from a DevOps point of view. So what could they do to clean it up? And he lists a few ideas here. One is, clean up the application logic so there's no reliance on the database as a queue. Use something like SQS or RabbitMQ, etc., and implement a queue system there, and then add a load balancer. Instead, use a secondary repo and just keep everything in the master repo, but have a different set of configuration for the second instance, or maybe do some combination of the above. So the first idea that I had was, like, if they're using Postgres, you could just use better queries where you can skip locked rows. But this feature isn't available on earlier versions of MySQL, and they happen to be on MySQL 5.6, so we can't do that. So Martin recommended also going to SQS. And yeah, Raymond points out that handling 30 concurrent users isn't too crazy. A lot of databases, have the ability to do transactions and locking and makeshift queues, which is kind of where I was going. But unfortunately, I think on MySQL 5.6, there aren't that many options to do that well, at least in a single SQL query. The other thing that Chanan brought up is that they also have a hybrid system. They're using some of the new stuff is on Django and Celery Worker and Celery Beat, while what we're talking about right now is their old stuff. So anybody have any thoughts that come to mind related to Chonan's problem?
Yeah, I have. I think it should be possible to add a CLI flag that basically says, hey, I'm not working on the queue in the database. And then only have one worker and have many web nodes. That's like a super, super simple, easy solution in my opinion. At least it should work, maybe.
Describe the flag again, and how does it work when?
I mean, just if you just add a CLI flag to the startup that you pass on startup, and then just trigger the worker, because the application, I assume, just runs in the background like forever, and then have like 10 nodes that basically do only web requests, and then you have one node which does all the queues. I mean, it's as far as I understood, it's the problem that
you need multiple workers. My assumption was the problem was you would have multiple workers, and that's the challenge. But otherwise, what you're saying?
I think, I mean, at the moment, yeah, we have multiple workers because sometimes maybe there may be too many tasks that we need to consume. And so if you're restricted to just, one worker, I think that may not do it. So that's that. I mean, ideally, I like to address this in a scalable manner so that if we ever need to grow and, add on additional consumer nodes, we can do so easily without thinking about it.
Then it's definitely the way to go with SQS or Kafka, or no, maybe not Kafka, but like something like Kafka in regard.
I think
Kafka, go Kafka.
I mean, it always scares. Everybody says Kafka, and then that's the thing that scares me because we don't really have anybody that knows. And it seems very complex for what we're doing.
Or why not just upgrade the database, for example, so you get row locking? Or
stupid question, but to unblock your immediate problem, have you just vertically scaled the instance that everything's running on?
True.
Yeah, I've done that a few times.
Just throw more money at it.
I have done that a few times. Trust me. And I don't want it to get to a point where even if I have money, I can't solve the problem. So that's why I'm trying to tackle this right now.
Yeah, it's just it's always that problem though between human time and theoretical time, or like the cost of scaling vertically is so often cheaper than hiring somebody to work.
Yeah, don't spend dollars to save nickels.
Yeah, but at some point, obviously, it makes sense. So, all right. Well, I think that was all some interesting ideas.
Eric, you were talking about upgrading the database. We actually have never done that. We started with 5.6 and we have always been 5.6. We only did like the minor updates, and I know like a lot of the nicer features are available on later MySQL versions. Now I know the path to upgrade probably isn't too pain-free.
It is for RDS MySQL, not for RDS Aurora.
Sorry, what is it?
It's totally painless. I don't know, maybe I should asterisk that. You don't need any downtime to go from 5.6 to 5.7 in RDS MySQL. You do for RDS Aurora.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Actually, my concern is more of the how that ORM works with the newer versions of MySQL. I need to take a closer look. We're using Django.
We are in the same boat.
Do you have a test environment?
My dev stack and sandboxes are on 5.7 and our production is in 5.6. If so, Django ORM 2, I forget if it's 2.2 or 2.4, works with both. I didn't have to change anything.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sounds like something to test it out properly.
That does raise the question, though. I was really upset to hear that my upgrade path when shifting to Aurora, which we shifted to because we had too big of a database and Aurora could handle larger databases, was bad. Anybody else stuck on 5.6 in Aurora because they went to Aurora?
I haven't run into it. Yeah.
It's actually good to know because
yeah,
right
exactly.
now I have like 1 terabyte database on RDS. My door's ringing, and I was thinking about switching it. So let me know. I'm listening, but I'm going to the door.
I've been very interested in running more databases in Kubernetes lately. There's that kubeprod project that has operators that looks really cool.
I've hit so many weird database things where I've submitted an Amazon support ticket and they've actually been helpful that I'm afraid of running databases on Kubernetes. And I don't know, that one Aurora like small thing that I've gotten, database performance insights for AWS has been like excellent. I've been pretty happy with stuff, and someday I'm going to learn more about running my own stuff in there, but for now we're going the opposite direction. And we're like, wow, we've got some Mongo databases running that we manage ourselves, and we actually aren't very good Mongo DBAs, so let's go move those to AWS. But we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. When you say for Mongo going to AWS, you're talking document DB?
Yeah, Mongo licensing stuff. Can't remember. Mongo compatible? Sorry, I have to go Google stuff when I forget those things.
Yeah, it seems like the biggest thing there that bites people is that it's not totally API compatible, or it's API compatible to one version of Mongo that's pretty old at this stage. So I wonder what the long-term viability is of that, and if
they don't have a choice. They can't upgrade. Mongo changed their licenses for the new versions.
Right. Well, it basically in response to this, right? Basically, yeah. Like it was a
genius play on Mongo's part.
It was, yeah. And then Google went out and did the right thing, which was reach a partnership with Mongo and release a managed version that way.
Oh, I didn't know about that. That's really exciting. I wonder if AWS can start giving some money to Mongo and then make their problem go away that way. Yeah, I haven't been following it, but that is the reason why we haven't done the thing that we're talking about doing, because we're not sure about the long-term viability of AWS Mongo compatible stuff. I don't think we're on the latest version of Mongo anyways. I'm embarrassed to go look at what our version of Mongo is, so it may not be an issue for us right now, but it would be in the future.
Looks like this announcement was exactly a year ago, come April. So I don't know what the latest is on it.
Like I said, I'm not a DBA, so a year-old information is about where my status quo is for database stuff.
Cool. All right, Andrew, do you want to go over your project that you've been playing around with?
Sure.
I'll stop sharing for a second. Do you want to share? Or?
Yeah.
And do you want to give a little intro to what you've been doing and the drivers?
Sure. So I created this project called Sto Practice, which is just, messing around with Istio. So I started out with Kind on my local machine and got pretty far, but then I wanted to figure out how to do Istio with Cert Manager and Let's Encrypt. And
let's assume lower level understanding. So Kind for everyone is that's Kubernetes and Docker. It lets you run Kubernetes just for testing and debug purposes within Docker as a container.
Yeah, and you guys are seeing my GitHub page.
Yep.
Okay, good. Yeah, Kind. I mean, there's a bunch of different options. There's Docker for Windows, Docker for Mac, or whatever it has a Kubernetes cluster. There's Minikube. There's MicroK8s. there's whatever. Kind is really, really easy because it's literally just Kubernetes running in Docker containers and spin them down. No issues, no VMs or anything. But
yeah, okay. And is the reason you chose Kind as opposed to because you're on a Mac, right? Is the reason you just didn't use the built-in Kubernetes support for Docker for Mac?
Because I wanted to just really easily be able to destroy the whole thing and start over.
Okay.
And that would be harder on the Kubernetes cluster.
Okay, makes sense.
So I started out messing around with the Istio operator, and it's been looking really good. I set up inlets, which is really cool. If you haven't seen inlets, it provisions a DigitalOcean node that costs like $5 a month and gives your private cluster a public IP address and creates a tunnel to tunnel from the public IP address of the DigitalOcean droplet to your private cluster. You can run a home lab with Raspberry Pis or whatever and have a public endpoint.
Got it. It's a static public endpoint hosted on DigitalOcean.
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yep. And then there's a tunnel that gets created between your private cluster and the public endpoint.
Okay. Oh, and you used Arcade for that. Do you want to give people a context for what Arcade is?
Arcade is a wrapper for Helm, basically, and it makes installing some Helm charts very simple. Arcade has to specifically support the chart that you want to install, but it's like, for example, Cert Manager. Everybody know, or if you don't know, Cert Manager's Helm chart is kind of a pain in the ass because not only do you have to install the Helm chart, but you have to install custom resource definitions before you install the Helm chart, and it just kind of goes down a rabbit hole. Well, guess what? Arcade install Cert Manager is literally all you have to do.
Yeah.
So I got down to the HTTPS section and figured out that inlets, the OSS version, does not support HTTPS. It's port 80 HTTP tunnel only. So there's an Inlets Pro license, but it's like freaking $300 a year or something, so I didn't buy it. So I switched over to EKS. I created another one for EKS.
Who's by?
Alex Ellis and OpenFast.
Okay.
And people actually pay for it. It's crazy.
That is remarkable. I mean, power to them, and
I mean, I would pay $5 or $10 a month, no problem, but I'm not going to pay $30 a month for it.
Yeah, it's speaking to a demographic that I think would very quickly just implement their own solution rather than pay that. Even though
he's put a ton of really good work into it. It's got an operator that runs, and anytime the operator sees a service with type load balancer, it just automatically spins up a DigitalOcean droplet and creates the tunnel, and everything is just completely seamless.
Okay.
So he's spent a lot of good time on it. I just can't justify $30 a month on it.
Yeah.
It took me a really long time to figure out the HTTPS part where you're configuring Cert Manager with Let's Encrypt to work in Istio. And to compound that, the Istio documentation is not even very good because it wants you to use a plain old ingress. Which I'm like, that's not Istio. Istio is gateways and virtual services, right? They don't use ingresses. So why is the Istio docs telling me about ingresses? So I've, dug down the rabbit hole, and I've created this guide for how to set up Istio to pick up virtual services and everything using Let's Encrypt and Cert Manager. So where's my example? What was it? bar.istio practice. Is that it? Can I take it down?
You have to start with HTTPS?
No, because I have it so it's set up to automatically migrate.
Redirect.
What?
To automatically redirect, yeah.
I thought you couldn't use HTTPS because of that thing you were just saying.
I'm in EKS now.
Okay.
So I created another README document for using EKS. So I just copied Cloud Posse's EKS cluster example, all of it, and just dumped it into here.
Nice.
And so it spins up the EKS cluster using Cloud Posse's example. 565284.
So is there any kind of feedback you're looking here for? Is there a certain person that should try
I would love it if people were to, try it out and, maybe provide any feedback on the guide. Why is that not working?
Is anyone using
it's
Istio in production today?
page. There we go. There it is. So here's my Let's Encrypt certificate for this subdomain, and there's the virtual service, and it just uses the gateway that gets created automatically.
How do you like
So
Istio so far? Because I'm really scared to go this way right now. I've never used like a service mesh or anything like that.
So it's definitely it definitely adds quite a bit of complexity, but depending on what you're doing, it adds a ton of value. Right. So there's things like this book info example that Istio gives you runs 3 different versions of this reviews microservice, right? And so when I hit refresh here, see these stars changing? Because it's actually load balancing between V1, V2, and V3 of the reviews microservice. But with Istio, you can create this, routing rule to say, okay, I want, like, let's say you're running V1 and you want to canary release V2. Using Istio, you can do traffic management through your service mesh to say, okay, send 98% of traffic to V1 and send 2% of traffic to V2. And yeah, you can do anything you want in that, and you don't have to be using some complex, continuous delivery product like Spinnaker or whatever to do canary testing.
The only 2 ways that I've seen people doing canary builds are Spinnaker and Istio, and I haven't actually figured out how they're doing it in Istio, and I now forget who I was talking to at a DevOps days in the past. But the last time I tried to do Istio, I'm afraid of operators, so I used the Helm template install path on 1.2.2. So I'll definitely follow your docs for this. I think they're on like 1.5.2. I don't know how long ago it was my last attempt. I gave up because of the cert manager tie and stuff that I couldn't figure out. So this is very good.
So Andrew, to send you further down the rabbit hole, I guess the challenge is it's pretty easy to deploy these static rules and the traffic shaping to do the what you're describing for running multiple versions and canaries. But what the challenge is then the business logic for ramping that up or converting it over. And that's where, I forget what it's called. There's a operator for managing that controlled process with Istio. Have you thought any more about how you would do that, or is that a later project?
I'm not. Can you say that again? I'm not totally following.
Yeah, hold on. Let me. Why don't you keep talking? Let me find what I was looking for.
Like, so so the virtual service is what you use in Istio instead of a ingress, right? So you're not using the ingress resource anymore. You're using the virtual service. And so, like, here in your virtual service resource, here I am, weighting 90% towards Hello World v1 and 10% towards Hello World v2. And so all I have to do to change that is just modify this virtual service resource, and Istio takes care of the rest. And there's Istio-ctl commands, which is like the command line for Istio to do some of this stuff, like more, on the fly. But in a configuration as code world, I want to see what the actual resource looks like. And that's it. Like, that's how it's doing Canary. It's doing 10% load to V2 and 90% load to V1.
Yeah,
and it's that simple.
Yes, but is that part that you got to ultimately automate and back it up with something that's coming, like, say, from Prometheus, metrics, or other, tests that you're running? So Flagger is the thing I was thinking of. It's by Weaveworks. Haven't used it, haven't seen it. I'm just curious, how hard it is to use it.
No, and I'm still really early in the Istio stuff. There's a ton of different features in Istio, and trying to do everything all at the same time is too much. So I'm focusing on right now. I'm focusing on that HTTPS Cert Manager stuff and MTLS. And the next thing I'm going to focus on is zero trust. Basically saying, service A is only allowed to talk to service B and nothing else. So if someone breaks into service A and gets shell level access or whatever, they can talk to service B all they want, but they can't go talk to the database directly or something, and that's the zero trust framework that Istio offers.
Yeah.
So I'll link my my guide here that I've been working on, and feel free to mess around with it.
Did.
I'm sorry?
Adam already did.
I got really excited. Thanks.
Yeah. Cool.
One of the other reasons that I'm interested in Istio is they have a New Relic plugin, which is ironic because I don't know if anybody from SuiteOps, I should check to see if that code got used. Eric went to Observe 2020, but I got a lot of value out of the open, no worries, the open telemetry stuff. So, but I felt a little bit out of place because I am a diehard New Relic user at edX, and then going to open telemetry related conferences was a fun time. But we'll see if Istio and other things like New Relic in the open source world can come together and add value, because we've been having trouble giving people, even just explaining all the different knobs in Kubernetes, because some of our company's developers know how everything works in a Packer AMI build AWS world, and they have no idea how it works in a Kubernetes world. So I'm hoping that more New Relic, because they're familiar with New Relic, will help them get more familiar with Kubernetes stuff, but we'll see.
So as far as you know, New Relic doesn't have anything for Istio yet?
They do. They have a, I can find it. I think that's the right link. Istio service mesh plugin thing. When was that article from? November. So I haven't actually looked at it since I saw it got announced that much a couple months ago, but we'll see if other stuff is there. I also don't know people using, like, in theory with Canary builds, you can, let's say I ship 3 things in a period of 3 minutes, I should be able to roll one out gradually and then use AppDex scores to figure out, like, should I keep it out, and then have them in like a tiered fashion and then roll one back out. It's like a pipe dream though, because I can't find anybody who's got that working right, but we'll see.
I think there's some stuff in Kiali that comes with Istio. It's like a dashboard for the service mesh as well, but I haven't really messed with it all that much.
Yeah.
How do you spell Kiali?
Kiali. Here,
I've been pronouncing that very different. Got it.
Yeah, I've been calling it Kiali as well, but I don't know if that's.
So I do what? Istio CTL dashboard. Kiali.
I don't know. Anybody know the canonical pronunciation?
It's probably Kiali. I never pronounce anything right.
It's Kiali.
Yeah, Kiali.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see.
Yeah, if you want to know, I tried it a little bit, Kiali. I mingled with it, and it's really cool. It's really simple to set up. You can it comes almost built in with Istio, and if you turn it up, then you can see all traffic, like all the traffic go through between your services, and can visualize that really cool. And but it's only limited, obviously, to the services that you've enabled the sidecar injection for. But yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Kelly comes with Istio, and you can actually, with Istio CTL, you can literally just do Istio CTL dashboard Kiali, and it'll bring it right up with a, and behind the scenes, it does a kubectl port forward. But I think like here's the reviews service that I was talking about, and there's V1, V2, V3. I think in Kiali here I can like mess around with the load balancing and stuff, but I haven't really paid a lot of attention to how to do that.
What's cool is you just spin up a load tester. Like I started the Bombardier to load test that and see the traffic goes when you increase or reduce the load. You see those little dots that are flowing like more like faster or slower, and it's really cool to watch while you're load testing.
Yeah, that sounds really cool. That sounds really cool. Let's see, let's review the office hours channel, see if there's been any other questions here. Don't see anything here. All right, let's look at the agenda quickly.
I only added something that I found. It's how you can get APM, the Elastic APM, working on a non-official Elasticsearch enterprise cluster, which is linked in the Office Hours channel, which might be interesting for some of you that want to run Elasticsearch by AWS. It's super, super simple to do. And also the way it's visualized, maybe you can show it. It's one up. It's the GitHub issue. And then this first link, if you click it, it's super, super cool. Like alternative one.
So you deployed it then on Kubernetes or something, pointed at your last AWS EKS cluster?
No, not really. So you clicked the second link. I wanted to.
Oops.
I know just enough to be really interested in this, but I only learned about Jaeger in the conference that I posted links to, and we use Amazon Elasticsearch, but this is interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Alternative one, not two. Okay. Yeah, one. So the cool thing about it is the open distro Elasticsearch is missing the APM UI. This is the one that I linked and made screenshots of. And since I'm not using Enterprise Elasticsearch anymore at work, I was thinking, how can I use the same agent, because the agent is super, super awesome, super, super simple to integrate, to display the same stuff. And basically what you do, since the Elastic APM server is open source, you can just use your own Elasticsearch. You don't use Kibana for visualization, but you use Jaeger query and UI, because it's the same format. It's open tracing something like a format that they organized on. And also this tool I find super interesting, because you just can click up together your pipeline that you have and it displays it for you. But yeah.
That is cool.
Basically,
when you enable the Elastic agent, how much data are you pumping then to Elasticsearch for like a staging cluster or your dev clusters? I mean, how big are your, I guess would be, it's totally arbitrary based on your situation. I'm just curious.
Right. So it really depends. We had like roughly like 50,000 visits per day on this one service, which we had APM instrumented on, and it was roughly 30 gigabyte per day.
Per day, generating
per day. Yeah. So yeah. It's a lot, but it's for the value that you get out of it. I shared the screenshots, right? It was super, super interesting for me to actually see how it works.
Yeah, Open APM. I need to bring this up. Demo.
Maybe I can find the thread somewhere where I posted about it.
Yeah.
If you not already have it, I'm not sure.
Yeah, or just, I think you posted it before in office hours, but maybe just refresh, post a link to that message.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
So Sheldon, are you on the call today or? Doesn't seem like it. All right, you posted something interesting.
It's in here.
It looked really, what caught my eye is that it was described as Zapier for DevOps. Now this seems to be a puppet-centric solution, so I'm not sure how well it fits into the ecosystem a lot of us are using with Kubernetes and Helm and whatnot. But in principle, I like the idea. Has anybody looked at relay.sh? All right, so we'll skip that for today.
Doing direct modifications of resource feels weird to me. I would, if I were doing something like this, I would do something like, I know Capital One has a project that's open source that is like AWS Cop kind of thing, where it just monitors all your resources in AWS and you set up rules. So, this example that relay.sh is giving, where detect new S3 bucket, make it so it's private only. The other way to do that would be just disallow any S3 bucket that's not private.
Yeah. This is the difference between a marketing site and best practices, right? It sounds good, but it's not the right way to probably go about it. And right now I don't have a use case that I've been trying to solve with this. It comes, I think there's also like the equivalent for Kubernetes, some event framework that lets you plug into everything going on there. Right now, I don't know what I would use it for.
But I'm really wanting to start looking into something like that, because the way my company is kind of set up is we get an AWS account, and then all kinds of people get access to it, and it's just kind of everybody does whatever they want. And it's caused issues.
Cool. Any questions anybody has? Terraform, Kubernetes, Helm, DevOps, best practices, you name it.
Kind of a random one. What's everybody's thoughts on using Let's Encrypt or convincing our chief security officer to allow us to use Let's Encrypt for production workloads? Because previously we were doing our 3-year wildcard certs with GoDaddy.
Yeah.
Now they limited us down to 2 years, and part of the DevOps team is like, hey, why are we renewing certs at all? Why don't we automate it? And the Let's Encrypt project came along, and so many examples are all over the internet.
I mean, something like 40% of all internet traffic is secured by Let's Encrypt now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's become the thing everyone uses, basically.
Yeah.
I've been completely happy with it.
Yet. Yeah, and then I've only heard success stories, and I think the only bad publicity they got was they had to immediately expire those 3 million certs, but what was that, only like a small percentage of their certs to begin with?
And the transparency around what happened.
Yeah,
What I'll give you a failure story, but I think we've come past it at this point. So now we are back to basically recommending Let's Encrypt in production. 2 things. One is the rate limits. If you are sharing DNS zones between production and staging environments, for example, in staging maybe where you have preview environments, and you're generating a lot of short-lived certificates with that, those rate limits can really come to bite you because you can be blocked from provisioning any new certs in the production environment. And there's nobody you can even pay to unblock that. So it's like a forced mandatory, whatever that TTL is, until you can create a new certificate, you're blocked. So that's a liability in my book. We mitigated this in large part by support of wildcard certs in Let's Encrypt, which wasn't possible before, but now it is. So we're not hitting those rate limits anymore.
That is a really good thing to know. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and there are a lot of different type of rate limits. It's like you've created too many host names on this domain, on this top level domain. So that's where we would get.
Yeah. That the top double, the TLD is what does the, like if I create, 100 subdomains for one TLD, then, I'm going to start messing with rate limits.
So, and another realistic example of this is like, let's say you're doing blue-green clusters and you want to just bring up a parallel environment with, 30 new services overnight, or I mean, within an hour or something, where that grew organically, worked perfectly fine in the other cluster, but now that you're bringing up this brand new cluster from scratch that has to regenerate all those certs, that's going to trigger those rate limits. The Acme protocol for Let's Encrypt is technically open. I believe there are some other implementations of it, but I couldn't, in my searching, and this was 2 years ago now, I couldn't find a provider that provided Acme compatibility that I could pay, therefore not having rate limits.
Let's Encrypt does have a staging environment that is much.
Then you need to add. Then you need anybody who uses it needs to add their, their untrusted CA to their keychain, or click a lot of buttons every time they want to go to a site.
Sure.
And if you add that CA to your keychain, now you're opening your laptop up to a world of hurt from any other site that is exploiting that.
Sure. Something else that I've been interested in that I haven't tried yet, but like if you don't necessarily care about having, a validated cert, you want a self-signed cert. Cert Manager can act as a root CA.
Yeah, so that's the other option. Works really well.
I haven't looked into it yet, but I'm interested in it because there's stuff where we have to run.
Sorry, were you referring to AWS Cert Manager?
No, Cert Manager, the Kubernetes service that.
I forget. Everything always goes back to Kubernetes here.
Of course.
It does. Yeah, Andrew, you were actually, that was a talking point last week or the one before that, right? That Cert Manager for KIM would solve.
Yeah, that's right. I remember now. We were talking about, I haven't looked into it yet, but I'm interested in it because we're running Kubernetes clusters in air-gapped environments.
Yeah.
That the solver for Let's Encrypt would not be able to get into.
Yeah. And the other thing you were going to work on was setting up a separate node pool for the KIM master.
Yeah, we haven't done anything with that yet either. against my advice.
Right. Well, I'm sure your backlog runs deep, like for all of us.
The powers that be don't seem to think it's a big deal since we are in that air-gapped environment. And I kind of, agree. It should still be fixed, though.
So going back to your original question, how to convince your CISO that it's okay, I guess it's more about referencing other big names using it for production use cases and reliability, but also the situation, also what it enables. So because it's fully automated, you get more TLS automatically, versus if you're trying to use ACM, with like ALBs, it's a lot more tedious and manual, at least under Kubernetes. Now, I forget, Mike, are you guys using Kubernetes or no?
No, not at this time.
Then, but
I mean, Certport is the same. Like Certport works exactly the same. You can install on the VM. You just have to configure which domain it is on, and it works fine. You have to configure your cron job to run it every day, but it won't really use cert when it's up for renewal. So,
are you guys, Mike? Are you guys using ACM, Amazon's certificate manager today, or ACM?
We are, and that makes it a lot easier to update. The load balancers we have in place, but we are using GoDaddy as our cert, registrar.
Wait, so okay, so ACM, but not Amazon certificates.
Correct. Yes.
Imported certs.
Okay, gotcha. So yeah,
previously.
Go on.
Yeah, so previously it was just like every 3 years, like, all right, who's going to deal with it this time?
3 years is also too long.
Yeah.
Just because it's, you know, that's where, you know, it spans the time that people stay at a company, so it becomes other people's problems, and then nobody knows how to rotate it.
I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for Let's Encrypt, and you know, there's a section called Involved Parties, and it lists the board members and the technical advisory board, and you've got big names on here from like Facebook, Mozilla, Google, the Internet Society, which is what is the Internet Society? Whatever. The Electronic Frontier Foundation, Cisco. You know, so it's not like some, you know, hey, this is what we're doing. It's like the behemoths in the, you know, the technical world right now are behind it.
Yeah, and at the time it was just kind of a side conversation where it's like, oh, you know, what about like Let's Encrypt? And he's like, no, I'm like, what are you kidding? I'm like, oh, and I was just doing some research on my own. I'm like, well, it sounds rock solid. I just don't think he's ever even considered it. And if it, you know, veers off of what everyone's kind of used to, it's like, no, it's scary. Don't do it, or don't trust it.
I remember when SSL came out, people were spending a couple $1,000s a year on SSL certificates from like Network Solution. Are those absurd prices still there? I haven't even bothered looking at this stuff for, I don't know, 5-6 years or something. So I'd be really surprised.
I just had to renew wildcard certificates for €500 for 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah, I think it was like 600 US about for a 2-year wildcard, I think.
Who was the issuer?
GoDaddy.
GoDaddy? Wow.
For me at least.
Semantic, I think.
What's the markup on that?
Super stupid. Like, we could not even go lower. They said, yeah, you had a 2-year wildcard, you have to go with 2-year one again. And I just needed for a couple of months until my Kubernetes migration is done. But, well, with going without it and like migrating to something else too fast is also not really.
They call it a tax on being stupid. It's a tax.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this says GoDaddy wildcard SSL starting at $300 per year or $295 US per year. So.
I'm just curious if they
imagine they're still in the thousands.
Yeah.
Fun fact, the first Let's Encrypt certificate was for helloworld.let'sencrypt.org on September 14, 2015. That's fun. I have a Let's Encrypt t-shirt somewhere. I was so passionate about what they're doing, you know, furthering the encryption of the internet as a whole that, you know, I went and spent $20 and bought one.
I mean, it also depends on what you want. If you want like company validation, then you need like something else than Let's Encrypt. But if you don't care about it, like about the green cross in the top left corner, then it doesn't make any difference. You can just go with
Seems like the company validation is the weakest link at this point.
Yeah, nobody's using it anymore as far as I know.
Yeah.
Like,
what do you mean by that? What do you mean by company validation?
So send us a letter on company. Fax us a letter on company letterhead that says that you authorized them.
Right. There's like 3 different types of validation as far as I know, which are like 3 different price tiers as well. Like there's CV, which is company validation, then there's domain validation, and there's some other type of validation. And you
all right, basically, guys. Okay, you ready Andrew, for this?
I'm ready.
Oop, that's the wrong one.
What's going on?
Sorry, I interrupted you. Keep going.
Like there's like 3 different types, and basically they offer additional security, and some browsers basically trust these certs more, and then you have a green cross in the top left corner. For example, if you visit PayPal, they have they don't do it anymore. Oh, maybe that's not even a thing anymore. Okay, Andrew.
There used to be something about the strength indicator, right?
Yeah, but I think they removed it. It's just a white cross.
Look at my screenshot in office hours.
Let's see.
Wikipedia is using.
If it's good enough for Wikipedia, it's good enough for you.
Oh, okay. That's a pretty good indicator there. Impressive.
Now, are the certs that you generate on Let's Encrypt, because it's free or because it's so easy, are they generally shorter life
90
spans?
days by default. I don't think you can even change it. I think they're always 90 days.
They're 90 days,
Okay.
but if you're running CertBot or Cert Manager or whatever, it automatically refreshes them.
Yeah, so you never need to worry about it.
And if something goes wrong and your CertBot goes down or something, like 30 days before it expires, you get an email from Let's Encrypt saying, hey, your certificate's about to expire.
Which is a good point. So when you set these things up, make sure it's going to an email address being monitored.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. They actually
How
prevent
often
you
do they
from
renew it?
issuing certificates with like, @example.com email addresses or whatever. I think they renew every 30 days.
So you get it for 90 and they're just going to refresh it or renew it every 30.
Well, you're allowed to renew it whenever you want, but these automated tools, I think probably renew it every 30 days or something.
The key, so they start sending automated emails. I don't think you can control it. I forget what it is, like 15 days or 20 days before they expire. So you just want to make sure that you're renewing it before that time so you don't get alert spam.
Got it.
Their philosophy was to try to promote more frequent. In other words, they were concerned that people were buying certs and hanging on to them for a couple of years.
Yeah.
So they wanted to encourage people to,
valuable. Yeah.
I think when you
Also,
request a certificate, you can request less than 90 days, but the most you can request is 90 days, which is the default.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, speaking of temporary emails, I discovered, or I'm sure everybody's heard about it, but like Mailinator or Gorilla Mail for temporary mailboxes. Is that to do some like Amazon SNS testing, so testing out subscriptions and stuff like that. I'm like, oh, this is pretty handy.
Yeah.
The one thing I saw about Mailinator, I don't think this is free anymore, but I think there was like GorillaMail.com, which was one, or it's like if you Google like the comparisons. Oh, personal. Oh, I guess you just have to sign up.
I don't know. I end up just Googling this stuff every day. Every time I need it, I just find another service. I like the ones that do, provide a UI that I just look at and it updates automatically when I receive it. So the problem I had recently, so we used to always just use Mailgun as the go-to for our SMTP gateways for forwarding mail, like for Sentry or something like that. But now, they changed the billing for that, and it's another thing to get our customers to get vendor approval and credit card set up. And I wish there was another service that could take its place that was more or less free. We didn't have to worry about. Amazon SES, have you seen how ridiculous it is to set up email forwarding on Amazon SES as an SMTP gateway? You need
I don't even know what SES is.
Simple email service. You need to set up a freaking Lambda to do this. And it's still not it's not the original email, I don't believe is even intact. And it doesn't support certain things like I think attachments and other things out of the box. So we have a Terraform module that implements this. I hate it so much, I don't even recommend it. So what do you guys think for SMTP relays? Anything that would make it easier for me? We're just deploying your own SMTP relay with an elastic IP or something.
Yeah, we use Mailgun.
Mailgun, yeah.
Yeah, we also use managed services that make it a little bit easier.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous how hard it can be. Because if you're not an established service, then you get blacklisted. Like even if you can send the emails and you get everything set up right, the recipients don't get it because you're blacklisted.
Yeah, and it's not like they don't get you. It's just black hole, right? So they don't even go to spam.
What we ended up doing like in our, we needed sending email capabilities in our air-gapped environments, and we ended up like creating a tunnel out of the air-gapped environment, which isn't very air-gapped anymore.
Yeah.
But,
how do you solve that problem? Sending emails out of an air gap environment.
USB sticks.
they have a
Yeah.
They
they have
queue
a
up on
they have a
USB.
DNS they have a DNS server inside that environment that you could send stuff through.
Well, mail is store and forward, so you could actually have like dial up to a DMZ, so to speak, and then close the connection, and then
Yeah.
you don't need it doesn't have to be a live bi-directional link.
That is true.
Now you could use, I mean, so true confession, I use Gmail. I mean, I use Mailgun for stuff that I need to be like, where I'm not watching it very carefully, but Gmail, actually, if you've got a Google account and you authenticate to it, as long as you don't have very high volume.
Exactly, not very high volume, which is not the case for alerts typically, or Sentry or things like that.
Well, right,
Yeah. Roll out one bug and you get your Gmail account blocked. But yeah, that is a fair assessment for low volume. A recommendation for low volume.
I've been incredibly happy with SES from Amazon. Like that's the go-to for me.
But SES, yeah, but like, I don't know, but not for an SMTP gateway though, right? Where you want to just forward the original envelope and body.
Oh no, it would use that. SES gets used directly.
Yeah. So in that case, I get it. So, all right, guys, we're out of time for today. So let's begin to wrap things up here. Thanks everyone for sharing again. Posting of this recording will be sent to the Office Hours channel in the next few minutes. As well as an email that you can forward with your team. If you want to book a session at any time with Cloud Posse, go to cloudposse.com/quiz, and look forward to talking with you. Again, see you guys next week, same time, same place.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Adios.